Hey, everybody, it's day 5. That means we're in Mark chapter 5. Mark chapter 5 is a little bit of a longer chapter, but it's really just two stories, right? We have the demon possessed man and we have the healings. And so, with the demon possessed man, a couple things you need to know of. One, this is the most detailed description of a demon possessed man in all of the Bible. So, we have this story, very detailed. You also pick up some other details in Luke chapter 8, which we'll get to in a few weeks. But we learn a couple of things. One, it's been a long time this man has been demon possessed. Two, he's naked. He's tearing off all his clothes. He's just roaming around naked. Number three, he's living and acting like a wild animal. Okay, so those are some things that we pick up in Luke 8. But now as we go into Mark chapter 5, we see Jesus has coming off 4. They've come to the other side, which is the east shore of the Sea of Galilee in the country of Gersa. Today it's called Kersa, Kersa. And this is on the east side. And this is, just so you know, this is kind of a group on the east side, kind of the northeast side of the Sea of Galilee, was a big population of what we call Hellenistic Jews. And these are Jews, but they are kind of dove into the Greek language. They speak Greek. They don't speak Hebrew. They also live like Greeks. They do their schooling like the Greeks. And so they're very much like the Greek, but they also are Jews. And so there's a lot of things there that is different. But when you think about the east side of Galilee, you think about this region of Gersa. If you know anything about 1 Corinthians, you kind of get this idea. There would have been a lot of acropolis. There would have been a lot of idols. There would have been a lot of places where people would have worshiped many other gods, even though themselves they were Jewish. Okay, so you kind of have like this mixed kind of culture of pagan idol worship along with Jewish worship. Now, in this country of Gersa, we come across this demon-possessed man, and I noted a few notes here. Let's see. Verse 3, he lived among the tombs, so he lived in the graveyards, which makes him unclean, right? So real Jews couldn't go to him if they believed in the clean or unclean. Most Hellenistic Jews didn't really necessarily care for that too much, because when they went to sacrifice to their idols, they would have been unclean anyways. But for the Jews coming over, especially Jesus, the disciples, some people that would have followed, this would have been unclean. Living among the tombs, he had supernatural strength. It says that not even a chain could hold him, that no one could subdue him. That word subdue there is to tame, like to tame a wild animal. They couldn't even, not even just cage him, but they couldn't even bring him down to be kind of like a controlled animal, right? He was ultimately a wild animal. He was always crying out. He was tormented day and night. He's crying out, and he was cutting himself with stones, probably stones and tombstones and parts of marble off of the tombs. He was cutting himself. So he was self-hurt. So we get this picture of this man who is completely wild and gone to his midst. But verse 6, when he saw Jesus from afar, he fell down before him, and crying with a loud voice, he said, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" Once again, we see that Satan, that demon, right? Demon is a worker of Satan, it is testifying to who Jesus is. And he says, "I admonish you by God, do not torment me." Do not torment me. A demon's job is to work against God. Anytime that a demon is not in a body, is not causing ruckus, is not going against God, that would be torment, right? So in a lot of the demon-possessed stories, we see Jesus tells him for him to leave the body, right? Just leave the body, he must go away. And so here the demon says, don't torment us. Don't make a slave go away. Don't make us leave the body. This is what I want to do. We even see in Luke chapter 8, the demons plead to Jesus, please don't make us go to the abyss. It's kind of the holding tank, if you will, for demons that will be held until the end of time in the book of Revelation. And so he says, don't torment me. And he says, Jesus asked him, what is your name? And he says, my name is Legion. Now, in the Greek, the word legion means 6,000. This necessarily doesn't mean that there was 6,000 demons in this person, but it does mean that there were many. There was more than one, okay? It doesn't mean 6,000, but it could. Don't really know. And he begged him earnestly not to send him out of the country. So he didn't want to leave the person, and he didn't want to leave the country. Remember what we talked about this area. This was an area plagued of idol worship, of sacrifices to many other gods, and a little bit of Judaism, right? So we're kind of living on the cusp of this is scriptural, but this is not scriptural, and that's a great place for Satan to live, right? We see that so much in today's churches, churches, let's use that word loosely. But he says, don't put us out of the country. And they see a herd of pigs feeding on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, send us into the pigs. Even to be in the pigs, they could at least do something a little bad, rather than just not being anything and being idle. But notice this. This is so important, right? I know a lot of you guys, you've told me, hey, I've read this and I didn't pick up on this on the first time. I've never heard this preached, never heard this, and never heard that. Notice verse 13. Man, this is so good. So he gave them permission. Even demons need God's permission to inhabit a pig, right? Think of Job, right? Satan says, God, I want to go after Job. Will you permit me? And God allows that to happen. God has allowed this demon-possessed man to have this demon, this many demons, this legion of demons for this time, for this place to bring about what's about to happen, right? So all these people that say, if you're a Christian, you're going to have a great life, that is so unbiblical. You will have a great eternal life, but while we're on this earth, everything that we are is controlled by the Father, and the Father is controlling it for His will, for His glory, and for His kingdom. Not for your benefit, not for your bank account, and not for your zip code, right? So that just hit me today as I was reading that. Hope that means something to you. And so what happens? They get cast into the pigs, and man, what happens? They drown, right? 2,000 pigs. They just go in the ocean and they drown. And notice it says the herdsmen, the people watching the pigs, right? They fled and told the people of the city of all that would happen, right? Notice this, verse 17, and they begin to beg Jesus to depart from the region. Everybody knew this crazy guy. Everybody knew this demon-possessed guy. Bam, they see it. They see the change. And here's what you need to hear, Christian. All right. So this chapter's so good. I'm not going to finish it. But here's what it is. All right. People are more scared of what Jesus could do in their life than what Satan is already doing in their life right now. Let me say that again. People are more scared, lost people are more scared of what Jesus is going to do in their life in the future than what Satan is doing right now. Lost people would rather have Satan in their life right now because they feel like they're in control than to giving leadership, to giving everything over to Jesus, to God, so that He would have all control, even though the outcome is so much better. People live for the now, not for the later, right? You guys know that. I know you know that. But here's proof text of what it is. A whole city has seen this demon-possessed man's life changed completely. And what do they say to Jesus? Get out of here. We want no part of this, right? Leave us to the demon-possessed people. Leave us to the control of Satan, because at least we have a little bit of say-so, right? And so this demon-possessed man goes after Jesus and begs him to stay. But Jesus cannot, because he has other ministry to do. And notice what he says. Go home and tell your friends how much the Lord has done for you and how He has had mercy on you. He says, hey, Christian, go home and tell people your testimony. Tell what was done. And then what happens? He leaves. The only reason he goes to Gersa is for this one man. This one man. This is the only time in Scripture we see him in this area. Okay, so he goes all the way across the sea, and he asks the demons to leave. Right, allows them to go in the pigs. They run over. The rest of the town says, get out of here. We want nothing about you. Jesus leaves, gets on a boat, goes on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. But the whole time, now he has one missionary in this area in Gersa that is kind of Jewish and kind of pagan, right? He has one missionary, and it's this guy. And notice, it's so funny in verse 18, notice what they call him. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons. That's his name. That's his name. That's his nickname. And that's probably what the people of Gersa called him all the way until he died. And probably somewhere on his grave it says, the man who was once possessed by Satan. Right? That's his testimony. That's who he has, and that's what he did. He gets on a boat, goes across the street. We get a healing. I don't have enough time to go through this, right? But we see that there's a ruler, Jairus' daughter, and then we see this man's faith, right? He says, come and lay your hands. I know she'll be healed. And so he starts to go, and he's among a crowd, and a woman reaches out and touches him, and he says, who has touched me? And the disciples say, are you kidding me, Jesus? We're in a crowd of 1,000 people. Everybody's touching you. He says, no, who has touched me? Who has touched my garments? I have felt power leave my body. He knows that a miracle has happened. Of course, Jesus knows who it was, but he wanted to, and this is important, he wanted to make this woman a public profession. He wanted to pull this woman out, and this woman comes and falls out. It says that she came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told the whole truth. And she told the whole truth. I've been bleeding for 12 years. I'm poor. I'm unclean. Probably her husband has left her. She has no money. Her kids are with her. All the things that have gone on, and says, I've done this, and I just knew if I could just touch the hem of your garment, if I could just touch the edge of your clothes, I know that something would happen. And he says, it happened. You are clean. Go, be good, well. And it's so, boom, so important. And at that exact moment, right? That exact moment that God is doing something amazing, what happens? Satan comes in. Somebody comes running up to Jairus and says, hey, your daughter is dead. Leave Jesus alone. There's no hope. There's no need of Jesus coming anymore, right? Jesus hears this and says, hey, just believe, Jairus. Don't have fear. Just believe. Jesus goes in, he walks in the house. There's professional mourners everywhere. People are wailing. This is just a job that they had, kind of like a funeral. People are wailing. He says, what are you guys doing here? She's not dead. She's just sleeping. And it says, verse 40, and they laughed at him. What's interesting about this in the Greek, it's in a perfect tense. What that means is that not only did they laugh at him, they continued to laugh and laugh and laugh. People made fun of Jesus forever and ever. They're just laughing and making fun of him. And so probably the disciples, says that he had everybody cleared out of the house, right? Disciples kind of kicked them all out of the house. And now it's just Peter, James, John, mom, and dad. And he goes upstairs and he says, Talitha Kumi, right? Little girl, arise. And immediately, there's our word, right, in Mark, immediately she got up, and immediately, there's our word again, mom and dad become overwhelmed, right? This healing is done, and he says, hey, don't tell anybody. My time hasn't come yet, but hey, she's a young teenage girl, right? She's 12 years old. She needs some food. Get her ready, right? And so it's just a great story of what God has done. Man, I have so enjoyed Mark chapter 5 today. Some of this I've forgotten. Some of it's a little fresh. You might have told by the video. Hey, but I truly hope as you read this, man, God and the Spirit is just revealing new things to you every single day, right? We will see you tomorrow in chapter 6, Mark chapter 6. God bless.